Baidu, if you don't know, is the largest search engine in China. It was founded, Robin was a Silicon Valley veteran, I believe. That's right. Went back to China, yes. Became a founder, an entrepreneur. And he's going to be talking with Maurice about the very large internet scene in China, as opposed to, we just were talking about Israel here. So we've gone from small to big. So Robin and Maurice.
Thank you, Spencer. So, I'm again with you. And as Spencer said, we are moving from a very tiny Israel to a slightly bigger China. How many times China compared to Israel?
Well, I don't know. Israel is very innovative in terms of innovation. Maybe Israel is bigger.
I understand that they would like to merge. Just before we enter into this conversation, I would like to explain why I have decided to do the 2 Chinese sessions myself. There is a very serious reason behind. I'm a great admirer of China and what the Chinese have been able to achieve. My first trip in China was probably before you were born. I saw the communist country. I saw how this country was doing in those days. I saw the Tiananmen place with almost nobody. Only some
it has
bicycles.
Changed certainly a lot.
And I have seen all the developments, and I have been several times, and I have seen the growth and the formidable energy of this country. So for me, it's a great pleasure and a great honor to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here.
No, it's really something which I feel it's a great honor. I know that you have done an incredible thing. Robin is a co-founder and the CEO of Baidu. For the people who don't know Baidu, you think about Google, you translate it in Chinese, so you go to Google Translator, and you put Google, you put Chinese, and you find Baidu. The first question I have for you is, are you Larry or are you Sergey?
It's hard to compare Baidu with Google that way. I'm the CEO from the very early stage of Baidu, and along the way, I have been chairman and CEO. Sometimes I thought it's not that fair. I'm just one man competing with 3 great men in Silicon Valley. Yesterday, you have Eric Schmidt here, and there's Larry, there's Sergey. They're all super smart people. And I have to, unfortunately, compete with them.
Yes, for dumb people, you're not doing bad.
Huh?
I said that for dumb people, because if they are smart, you are dumb.
Yeah.
When we see what you are doing, you are not so bad.
Well, I'm sort of lucky in the sense that when I went back to China from Silicon Valley, there were only less than 10 million people who have access to internet in China. And today we have more than 700 million people. So we
and they are all using Baidu.
They're all using Baidu. We enjoyed
on a daily
tremendous
basis.
ride. Yeah. So because of the super fast growth rate, we were able to ride along the way. We understand the local Chinese needs. We came up a lot of solutions that's good for the Chinese users. In the early days, there were not a lot of content in Chinese. So I worry about a very different problem that the Googles worried in the US. I worry, how could we help our users to create more content instead of just using technology to index whatever is already there on the internet. So back in 2003, that's like 13 years ago, we came up with an idea called postbar. Everyone can post whatever they are searching for. There's a query. For each query word, you have a dedicated message board for that query. Today, we have tens of millions of bars or message board. People ask questions, discuss things. They create a lot of content based on the infrastructure we set up. So instead of just indexing whatever is there on the internet, we created infrastructures for users to create content for us, for the Chinese users. Postbar is one thing, then there's Baidu knows, Baidu 知道. People ask questions, and other people answer questions. Today, there are hundreds of millions of questions asked, answered. If you post a question, chances are that it will be answered in 30 minutes. And then there's Baidu Encyclopedia, right? Kind of equivalent to Wikipedia, but it's owned by Baidu. And there are also hundreds of millions of entries edited by our users. So we helped to set up infrastructure for users to create content and serve the Chinese users.
This is very interesting because we have seen early on that with Tencent that in fact they found a different way than Facebook, and they have been able to be very different. We see that with Baidu, you are doing exactly the same. You are different from Google. You are not only Google, you are also Wikipedia. And not only you are this, but you are also a tool of interaction between the users, between themselves. So one can put a question, and 1,000 million of people can answer the question. So that is quite unique. And this leads me to, before speaking more about Baidu, to speak about the Chinese environment and the Chinese ecosystem. It is quite impressive. The way China has evolved and the way China has built a Chinese internet, a Chinese digital and technology solutions is quite impressive. Maybe you can tell us a few words about what are the drivers for this China ecosystem.
I think ultimately it's the market that's driving all kinds of things. The demand from the users, they look for things that's probably different from elsewhere in the world because it's an emerging market. Like I mentioned before, we had less than 10 million users 16 years ago. Today we have more than 700 million users. And along the course, because it has been growing so quickly, we have to address the growing problem. In the early days, for example, Google probably doubles their index every year, and we triple our index every 6 months because the content in Chinese available on internet grow much faster than the average or than the English world of the internet. So
why that?
Because more and more people went online in China, and more companies start to create content in Chinese. Before I went back to China, I worked in Silicon Valley. And when I decided to go back, I talked to a few of my friends and asked for their advice. What should I do when I go back to China? One of them actually suggested you should do an automated translation service because there are so much information in English, but very little information in Chinese. So you should work on an automated translation service so that Chinese people can have access to the English content. I decided not to do that at that time because I believe that the amount of information in Chinese will become larger and larger. And that proved to be true later on.
So you mean that if somebody gives you an advice, the first thing that you do is to do not follow the advice?
Well, I listen to a lot of people, but I need to analyze by myself. I typically, hear from a lot of people, and I discuss with a few of them. But ultimately, I make the decision by myself.
So, going back to Baidu, if, as I said with SY, can you tell us what is the main differences between Baidu and Google?
Yeah, I guess many of you here are not regular Baidu users, so I actually prepared a short presentation. So I'll go through this with you to tell you what we do.
Yes, this will be very useful. I'm sure that we will learn a lot.
So we are the #1 search engine in China with more than 70% of the market share. We answer billions of queries every day, mostly for Chinese, but we also have users from more than 100 different countries. We have more than 40,000 employees as of today. And like I mentioned, we serve a market of more than 700 million users. That's a 50% penetration rate, which means we still have room to grow. China has 1.3 billion people, and the number of internet users will keep growing. The Baidu search experience is already quite different from a traditional search engine in the sense when you go to a traditional search engine, typically you type in a query word, you have a list of websites ranked by relevance. Each of the sites have a title, summary, and you click on the title. It bring you to a different website. But for Baidu, for many of the queries, we already give you an experience pretty much like a Facebook news feed. When you search for something, you can see from the screen that you have a page that's like a humanly edited page with a lot of graphics, neatly organized around the topic. That's for content-oriented queries. There are also service-oriented queries. For example, if you search for a movie title, we actually tell you where the closest cinema is and when the showing time is. And you can go there on the Baidu search app and find the seat map of that showroom and choose which seat do you want to buy and place the order using Baidu Pay. So electronically, you can get everything done. Then at the time of the show, you just walk in there. So everything is seamlessly integrated into a search app from query to transaction. You don't need to register on another website like David Marcus mentioned earlier during the earlier session. The website in mobile age is very bad. The user experience is not good. If you land on a different website, you need to register again. You need to get used to their layout. But in China, people search for no matter information or services. They get the seamless integration without leaving the Baidu search app. We have everything there. We connect people with information. We connect people with services too. And of course, we also support voice. Eric Schmidt mentioned that 20 to 30% of the Google queries are already searched, and we have seen similar things going on in China. A lot of queries can be answered in voice because thanks for deep learning and artificial intelligence in general, we can understand people's voice much better than before. we have a dedicated virtual assistant called Duer. It can do conversation, can chat with people, can order takeout delivery for you, can buy movie tickets for you, can reserve a restaurant for you, and it can play music for you. So this can all be done in natural language. One example is that we actually placed our virtual assistant at a Kentucky Fried Chicken store in Shanghai because it's in a very dedicated purpose environment. It can actually do a very good job. I can show you a short video on how this assistant can place orders for customers in Shanghai.
请按住按钮和我说话。
取消订单。
请问确认下订单码？支付成功了。您的点餐号码已显示在旁边的大屏幕上。请。
I don't need on queue here because it is very convenient. Yes.
We talk, say something very funny, and he can answer the question like normal people.
取消订单。
好的，订单已取消，您还可以到人工柜台进行点餐。
Funny.
Yeah. So today, as a virtual assistant, it's not ready to function in a general environment yet. You probably have the similar experience with Siri or Facebook M or Google Assistant. But in a vertical area like in a KFC store, we can actually pretty much understand everything a customer says and replace the cashiers there. Then on a more general basis, we have this Baidu Brain that is pretty much the core artificial intelligence engine behind many of the Baidu services, including our self-driving car, our financial services. We have joint ventures with Allianz, with Citibank, with Pacific Insurance Company. We use our AI technology and big data to do creative services in the financial area. We also have innovation in education. Education is one of the largest advertising sector for Baidu. We actually work with thousands of educational institutions for many, many years. They advertise on Baidu. We know how good their services are. We know how much their students will make after they take those kind of training. In China, there are a lot of vocational schools. People go there to learn cooking, to learn car repairing, those type of services. But for those potential students, they typically do not have any credit history. They never made money before. They were like just teenagers without college degree. No bank will lend them money, but we do. We understand how good those educational institutions are. We understand how much their students will make. So we were able to lend money to those potential students and help them to get necessary training and find jobs. So for this, we also use our Baidu Brain. We use our big data to come up with a decision whether we should lend money to those potential students. We also have an innovative program called the User Protection Program. We power up 1 billion RMB, which is about 150 million US dollars for users who search on Baidu. You know, it's the internet, there are frauds. If they get cheated by the Baidu advertisers, if there's a fraud, we, Baidu, actually pay the users first, and then we go after those fraudulent advertisers. So I believe this is also very unique for the Chinese environment. We do a lot of things that it usually should be done by the government. Because we are early, everything is new on the internet, we have to protect our users so that they have a peace of mind when they use the Baidu service. So this is a brief introduction about Baidu.
It's quite impressive because when we look at this, it's a search, a conversation, an encyclopedia, Wikipedia, a bank, e-commerce, protection. What's missing?
There are a lot. You know, the internet in China is still growing very, very quickly. In communication, Tencent is very, very successful. In e-commerce, Alibaba is very successful. And even in search, I think there are more search engines in China than there are in the US or in Europe. We face a lot of competition, and I wake up typically 3 or 4 a.m. in the night and worry about the future of Baidu. In the early days when mobile came up, I worry about, okay, could we survive in the age of mobile? We designed our search for a desktop experience, but on mobile, the screen's smaller, the internet is slower, and people pay a higher fee for bandwidth. Things like that, but we eventually found that mobile is actually a better thing for search. We have to give the users the right answer on the first result instead of just showing them, tens of different links for them to choose from. We came up with all kinds of newsfeed like experience for content. We enable closed loop transactions for services. We actually could do a lot more than we could during the desktop age. Voice-activated search. People are not used to do voice on desktop, but it's very natural on a mobile phone that you can see, just freely say whatever you want to say, and the Baidu search engine can understand your true meaning. So it took us about 2 years to transition from a desktop search to mobile search. Today, more than 2/3 of our queries come from mobile, and more than 60% of our revenue, advertising revenue, come from mobile. But then we face a new problem. Will search still be relevant? Going forward, people can directly go to WeChat, go to Facebook, go to Uber, go to a lot of different apps. Do they still need search? And we need to worry about this problem. We need to address this kind of new consumer behavior. We need to keep innovating. We need to come up with better solutions for our users. So there are lots of things we worry about, and the more you worry, the more opportunities you have, the more innovation you can come up with.
So you mean that the next frontier for you is to move away from search and to invent new services?
I wouldn't say move away from search, but there are a lot more opportunities than search. I think going forward, people will still rely on search for a lot of things, information or services. But we can actually do a lot more. For example, finance. We can lend people money for those people, underprivileged people, they could never borrow money from any bank. We can.
So you can do microcredit.
Yes. Not necessarily micro. We actually can lend people, tens of thousands of dollars if necessary, because we know that they can pay us back. We have a better understanding of those people before they even accumulate any credit. And we, of course, have self-driving cars. Every day, more than 500 people get killed in car accidents in China alone. So if we can come up with a working self-driving car one day earlier, we save more than 500 people's life. There are lots of opportunities.
So you will be building new services. What will be the role of advertising in all these new services?
Well, I think advertising will still be very, very important. Like I mentioned, on Baidu, you can find content. Along the content, there might be advertisement. For service-oriented queries, we enable people to pay. So the form may not be the traditional form of advertising. For example, if you open up Baidu Maps, we've actually found most of the people who book a hotel room on Baidu Map, they book it on the same day. Traditional people would book a hotel room 1 week in advance or even 1 month in advance. But on Baidu Maps, they book hotel on the same day. They are already in the city. They just look for the nearby hotels and they just pick one. And when they book hotels, we take a commission from our partners. That's not necessarily traditional advertising anymore, but it's close, right? We help those hotels to find their customers. We just take a cut in the form of commission. But on a more general...
It's not a conflict when you have a search on hotels, you make a recommendation and you get a commission from the hotel. This is not a conflict issue?
Oh no. I think we serve both sides. We serve both the users. They really need to find a hotel nearby. They are already in the city. They need a place to sleep in the night. But for those hotels, they need customers. So we're just doing matchmaking here.
So you will, the next one is to create a dating system.
Well, I'm sure there are lots of companies creating dating system, but ultimately, as a platform, our job is to do matchmaking. Even for offline retail stores, on the way to here on the plane, I read a Harvard Business Review article that says a Temple University professor recently did a very large-scale experiment for offline department store advertisement. If you try to drive those customers who only shop online to your offline store, the profit for the retail store goes up 800%. On the other hand, if you try to drive those people who typically shop offline to your online website, your profit actually drops. It becomes negative. So what we're trying to do is to use the Baidu services, use our online presence to drive users to the offline stores so that retailers can make more money. There are a lot of opportunities like this in China and elsewhere too.
What is the share of revenue that you derive from advertising?
What users derive from advertising?
What Baidu, what in your revenue, when you look at the pie of revenue,
yes,
the advertising represent what share of the whole?
It's more than 90%. It's quite high right now.
It's still there.
Yeah.
And you have the objective of getting it down?
Yeah, it will gradually go down as we embrace more business models. For example, the hotel example, right? That's a commission-based revenue.
Yes. So you will develop more this kind of services where you can get revenue from third party?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Have you thought of going away from, not away, going in foreign countries and to go to Europe or to the US?
Yes,
You
I
have
think,
seen the investment of Tencent in gaming in Europe. Are you thinking about making investment in Europe?
Yes, definitely. I think eventually we will go into Europe, US, and many other places. Right now, we have presences in Japan, in Brazil, Indonesia, Thailand. We are in a number of countries, but we need to find the new battleground. Search is maturing, and mobile is very different from desktop. We need to find ways to access this kind of new market. Yesterday, when I walked in the retail stores in Paris, I found nobody but the Chinese travelers. So we need to enable our users to find good retailers here in Paris, right? We have a map service. So Baidu users, when they come here, they open up Baidu Map. We can tell them where are the good retailers here. We'll start from here. We will gradually expand into other areas.
Okay. Robin, we are coming to a close. I would like to thank you very warmly, but I would like also to ask you one very important question. When you have achieved what you already have achieved, which is absolutely fantastic, and by the way, I'm a bit surprised because the Chinese are more discreet in building a star system for CEOs, and you are less known than Jack Ma, and you are much less known than Larry and Sergey. This is something which one day have to be explained, because the success that you have had is just enormous. It's something quite unique. What is moving you, and what is next?
Well, I'm an engineer by training. I think every entrepreneur is different. For me, I don't want to be recognized on the street wherever I go, and I have to always wear a cap. I enjoy the life like an ordinary people. But because of my background, I'm very excited about the possibilities that technology can bring to the world. Today, already most of our services are powered by artificial intelligence, and I think going forward, there are a lot of new opportunities that we can do using technology, using innovation to change people's life. Today, what I'm so proud of is that a lot of people in China use Baidu services. They don't necessarily recognize me on the street, but they use Baidu on a daily basis. So tomorrow, I prefer people from Paris, people from Tokyo, people from San Francisco. They all use Baidu on a daily basis. That would be my aspiration. That would be my dream.
So we can expect to see you changing the European landscape as you have been changing the China landscape.
I certainly hope so.
Okay, thank you very much. Robin Lee.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Country was doing in those days. I saw the Tiananmen place with almost nobody, only some
it has
bicycles.
Changed certainly a lot.
And I have seen all the developments, and I have been several times, and I have seen the growth and the formidable energy of this country. So for me, it's a great pleasure and a great honor to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for inviting me here.
No, it's really something which I feel it's a great honor. I know that you have done an incredible thing.
So Robin and Maurice.
Thank you, Spencer. So, I'm again with you. And as Spencer said we are moving from a very tiny Israel to a slightly bigger China. How many times China compared to Israel?
Well, I don't know. Israel is very innovative in terms of innovation. Maybe Israel is bigger.
I understand that they would like to merge. Just before we enter into this conversation, I would like to explain why I have decided to do the 2 Chinese sessions myself. There is a very serious reason behind. I'm a great admirer of China and what the Chinese have been able to achieve. My first trip in China was probably before you were born. I saw the communist country. I saw how this
Baidu, if you don't know, is the largest search engine in China. It was founded, Robin was a Silicon Valley veteran, I believe. That's right. Went back to China, became a founder, an entrepreneur. And he's going to be talking with Maurice about the very large internet scene in China, as opposed to, we just were talking about Israel here. So we've gone from small to big.
Robin is a co-founder and the CEO of Baidu. For the people who don't know Baidu, you think about Google, you translate it in Chinese, so you go to Google Translator, and you put Google, you put Chinese, and you find Baidu. The first question I have for you is, are you Larry or are you Sergey?
It's hard to compare Baidu with Google that way. I'm